Mother, I'm back. He saved me. Alien Queen cries as her daughter returns with a human. The stars above the capital world burned softly, like distant candles floating in an endless dark sea. The palace of the queen stood at the center of the planet, grown rather than built, its towers curved and alive, shaped by ancient bioarchitecture. For many cycles, the palace had been a place of silence and control. Emotions were carefully hidden here. Grief was considered a weakness. Hope was treated with caution. The queen stood alone in the high chamber, her long form wrapped in ceremonial robes that shimmered with faint light. She stared at a projection of space, frozen on one image that had not changed in years. It showed the last known signal of her daughter's vessel, fading into nothing beyond mapped space. Her daughter had been young, curious, too curious. The court had declared the princess lost, presumed dead. The queen had accepted the ruling publicly. Privately, something inside her had never healed. But she ruled an empire. Empires could not pause for sorrow. A soft vibration moved through the chamber, a signal request. The queen turned slowly. An attendant entered, lowering their head. "A vessel has appeared at the edge of the system," the attendant said. "It is human." The queen's eyes narrowed. Humans were barely worth mentioning, a small species from a blue planet known for short lives and weak bodies. Clever, yes, but politically unimportant. They rarely approached the core worlds. "Why would a human come here?" the queen asked. "They request emergency diplomatic access," the attendant replied. "They claim to carry royal cargo." Silence filled the chamber. "That is not amusing," the queen said. The attendant's voice trembled. "The scanners confirm a biosignature. It matches the lost princess." The queen did not move. For several long breaths, she did not even blink. "Bring the vessel in," she said at last. "At once." The court gathered quickly. Ministers, generals, scholars. Whispers filled the air like insects. When the human ship landed, it looked small and old, its surface marked with repairs and mismatched panels. It did not look like a ship that could cross deep space safely, let alone protect royalty. Security surrounded it. Weapons hummed quietly. The hatch opened. First came the human. He was shorter than most of the guards, wearing worn clothing, his posture tired but steady. His hair was dark, his face lined with stress and exhaustion. He raised his empty hands slowly, showing no threat. Then a second figure stepped out. Gasps echoed through the court. The princess stood there, alive. Her skin bore faint scars, her posture less perfect than before, but her eyes were unmistakable. They widened as she saw the queen across the hall. "Mother!" she cried out. She ran. Royal guards froze, unsure what to do. The queen moved without thinking, crossing the hall faster than anyone had ever seen her move. The princess collided with her, arms wrapping tight, her voice breaking as she spoke. "Mother, I'm back," she sobbed. "He saved me." The queen held her daughter, feeling her warmth, her living presence. For the first time in many cycles, the queen's control shattered. A sound escaped her throat that no one in the court had ever heard before. A cry, raw and unfiltered. When she finally pulled back, she looked at the human. "He saved you?" the queen asked, her voice shaking. The princess nodded quickly. "Yes, I would be dead without him." The court erupted into confused voices. Some demanded proof, others accused the human of deception. A few stared in silent disbelief. The queen raised one hand. Silence returned. "You," she said to the human, "step forward." He obeyed, walking slowly until he stood before the throne. He did not kneel at first. Then, after a moment of thought, he lowered himself, not in fear but in respect. "I didn't know who she was," he said simply. That caused more whispers. "Explain," the queen said. The human took a breath. His voice was calm but rough, like someone who had not spoken much in a long time. "I was scouting old trade routes," he said. "My ship picked up a weak distress signal on a dead world. No atmosphere, broken terrain. I almost ignored it. Almost." The princess looked at him, her eyes shining. "She was trapped," he continued. "Her pod was damaged, life support failing. She was scared, but she tried not to show it." The princess lowered her head slightly, embarrassed. "I fixed what I could," the human said. "Used parts from my own ship, shared food. We waited, days turned into weeks, weeks into months." "You could have left," one of the ministers said sharply. "Humans value survival." The human nodded. "Yes, I could have." "Why didn't you?" the queen asked. He looked up at her, meeting her eyes directly. "Because she was a kid who needed help." The court went silent again. The princess stepped forward. "He taught me things," she said. "About patience, about laughing even when things are bad." He talked about his home. About storms and oceans and families. She smiled faintly. He never treated me like royalty, just like a person. Suspicion still lingered in the room, but something else had entered with it. Unease, the queen studied the human carefully. No signs of ambition. No hunger for reward, just exhaustion and quiet strength. You kept her alive, the queen said slowly. Yes, the human replied. You protected her. Yes, you expected nothing in return, he hesitated. I hoped she'd live. The queen turned to the court. Prepare medical evaluation and temporary quarters for our guest, one general objected. Your Majesty, this is not a debate, the queen said. The human was escorted away. The princess was taken for scans and care, though she protested the entire time, looking back until the human disappeared from sight. That night the queen stood alone again, staring at the stars, but the projection had changed. Now it showed the small human ship, docked safely within the palace hangar. For the first time in her reign, the queen felt something unfamiliar, gratitude. And far away in countless systems, no one yet knew that everything was about to change. The palace did not sleep after the princess returned. Light moved through the halls at all hours, and messengers traveled faster than ever before. News spread beyond the capital world and into nearby systems. The lost daughter of the queen was alive, and she had returned with a human. Across the empire, reactions were mixed. Some felt relief, others felt fear, many felt confusion. In the council chamber, arguments filled the air. Ministers spoke of danger, of secrets, of weakness. Generals questioned how a human could cross regions that even advanced fleets avoided. Scholars demanded studies and scans. Some accused the human of manipulation, others of luck. The queen listened in silence. The human was kept in guest quarters, guarded but treated with respect. He spent most of his time alone, staring out at the sky beyond the palace walls. The room was far larger than his ship ever had been, yet he felt smaller inside it. He did not ask for anything. He did not complain. Every day, the princess visited him. She told him about the scans, about how the healers said she would fully recover. She laughed more now, the sound still surprising to those who heard it. The human listened, smiling quietly, glad simply to see her alive and safe. You don't have to stay, she said once. I know, he replied. But you are, she said, he nodded, for now. In the council, pressure grew. Humans are unpredictable, one minister said. Their history is filled with conflict. So is ours, another replied. They are fragile, a general added. Weak bodies, short lives. Yet one of them survived where our fleets failed, a scholar said calmly. The queen raised her hand. What frightens you, she said, is not his strength, it is his choice. Silence followed. Later, the queen requested a private meeting with the human. He stood before her once more, this time without guards close enough to intervene. The room was quiet, filled with soft light. You saved my daughter, the queen said. Yes, he replied. Do you know what you have caused? She asked. He thought for a moment. She's home. The queen studied him carefully. Most beings would have demanded payment, power, protection. I didn't do it for that, he said. Why? She asked again, not as a ruler, but as a mother. He hesitated, then spoke honestly. Where I'm from, we don't always win. We don't always survive, but we try not to leave people behind. The queen felt something shift inside her. Her empire was strong, ordered, efficient, but it had been built on distance, on control, on removing emotion from decisions. And if my people turn against you? She asked. He shrugged slightly. Wouldn't be the first time someone was scared of humans. The queen almost smiled. Beyond the palace, other powers were watching. Alien ambassadors arrived, requesting clarification. Rumors spread that humans were dangerous in a new way, not violent but stubbornly loyal. A species that would endure suffering simply to protect another. That idea unsettled many. A vote was called within the council. Some demanded the human be returned to his world immediately. Others pushed for study. A few suggested alliance. The princess stood before them, breaking tradition. He stayed with me when he could have left, she said clearly. He shared his last food. He spoke to me when I was afraid. If you call that weakness, then I do not wish to be strong. The chamber erupted, but her words lingered. The queen rose from her throne. This empire values survival, she said. Yet survival without compassion is only existence. My daughter lives because one human chose to care. She stepped down from the throne and approached the human, who stood quietly near the chamber wall. Before anyone could stop her, the queen lowered herself. She bowed. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some fell to their knees in shock, others stared, unable to understand. "You are owed a debt," the queen said, "not because you demand it, but because you earned it." She stood and turned to the court. "From this moment," she declared, "humanity will be recognized as a protected ally, not for their weapons, not for their technology, but for their character." The decision sent waves through the galaxy. Records were updated. Classifications changed. Humans were no longer labeled insignificant. They were given a new title, one that spread quietly at first, then faster. Those who do not abandon. The human was offered many things: a place in the empire, resources, honor. He accepted only one request. "Let me go home," he said. "And let her visit." The princess smiled brightly. In time, human ships began arriving, not as invaders but as helpers, rescue crews, mediators, explorers willing to answer distress calls others ignored. Stories followed them. Of humans standing their ground not with force but with presence. Of humans staying when logic said leave. Other species watched and learned. The queen often stood beside her daughter, observing the stars. She had ruled for many years, but only now did she understand something simple. Power was not the ability to command fear. Power was the choice to protect without reward. And somewhere on a small blue planet, a human returned home, unaware that his quiet kindness had changed the balance of the galaxy forever. Time moved forward, but the galaxy did not return to how it once was. The Queen's decision had created a slow but powerful change. Not a loud one, not a violent one. It spread quietly like light reaching places long left in shadow. Human ships began to appear more often in distant systems. They did not arrive in large fleets. They came alone or in small groups, answering old distress signals, exploring dangerous routes others avoided, or offering help without being asked. At first, other species watched them carefully, waiting for hidden motives. None came. The human who had saved the princess returned to his home world. Earth looked the same as it always had. Blue oceans, white clouds, crowded cities. No one treated him as special. He returned to simple work, repairing ships and guiding explorers. He spoke little of what had happened. To him, it was not a great story. It was just something he had done. But the galaxy remembered. The princess visited Earth months later. She walked among humans, surprised by how loud and alive their world was. She saw children running without fear. She saw people argue, laugh, and forgive in the same moment. She understood why the human had survived loneliness and danger so well. Humans were used to chaos, used to loss, used to choosing kindness anyway. She returned home changed again. Years passed. Then the signal came. A distant system collapsed into panic when an ancient star began to fail. Entire civilizations faced extinction. Fleets tried to evacuate, but fear caused disorder. Some governments abandoned outer colonies to save their cores. The Queen's Council hesitated. The distances were too great, the risks too high. Then a familiar pattern appeared on long-range sensors. Human ships were already moving. They did not wait for permission. They did not ask for reward. They simply went. The Queen watched the feeds as human crews coordinated evacuations, shared supplies, and stayed behind until the last possible moment. Some ships were damaged. Some humans were injured. Still, they did not retreat until every chance was exhausted. Other species followed. For the first time in recorded history, a multi-species rescue effort succeeded on that scale. Afterward, the Queen stood before the council again. "You once feared humans," she said. "Now you follow them." No one argued. The title given to humanity spread wider. Songs were written by species that had never written songs before. Stories were shared in places where emotion had once been forbidden. Humans became symbols not of dominance but of resolve. They were not perfect. They argued, they failed, they lost, but they returned. The princess often stood beside the Queen during these moments. She had grown into her role, but she had not lost her warmth. She spoke openly, laughed freely, and challenged traditions that no longer made sense. Some resisted her, many followed. One evening she asked her mother a question. "Do you regret bowing?" she asked softly. The Queen looked out at the stars. "No," she said, "I regret waiting so long to understand." Far away, the human who had started it all received a message, an invitation, not as a hero. Not as a symbol, as a friend. He smiled, powered up his ship, and set a course once more. The galaxy was still dangerous, still uncertain. But it was no longer alone, and that made all the difference. The galaxy slowly learned a new habit. When trouble appeared, when silence replaced signals, when fear spread faster than information, many now asked the same question. Have the humans responded yet? It was not because humans were the strongest. Many species still had larger fleets and older weapons. It was because humans arrived when others did not. They stayed when others left. They tried even when success seemed impossible. The queen watched these changes from her palace, older now, her movements slower, her thoughts deeper. She had ruled for most of her life, but never had her rule felt so alive. Her empire had not weakened by opening itself. It had grown stronger in ways numbers could not measure. The princess stood beside her often. She was no longer simply the lost child who had returned. She was a leader in her own right. She spoke to councils. She traveled to distant systems. She listened more than she commanded. Many called her the bridge. One cycle, a message arrived that made the queen pause longer than usual. A distant alliance of species had collapsed into conflict. Old fear had returned. Borders closed. Accusations spread. Fleets gathered. War was possible. The queen called a council, but before arguments could rise, the princess spoke. "Let the humans speak first," she said. This would have been unthinkable once. Now it was accepted. Human representatives arrived. They did not threaten. They did not promise victory. They spoke plainly. "We won't choose sides," one human said, "but we'll stay between them." Against all logic, the plan worked. Human ships positioned themselves in neutral space. They opened communication channels. They carried messages when others refused to listen. They reminded everyone of what war would cost. Not all listened. Some attacked. The humans did not respond with anger. They focused on evacuation, on protection, on reducing harm. When the conflict ended, fewer worlds burned than expected. Afterward, the queen asked the princess, "Why do they keep doing this?" The princess answered softly, "Because someone once stayed with me." The human who had saved the princess returned again to the capital world. Time had changed him too. His hair showed gray now, his steps were slower, but his eyes were the same. He walked through the palace without fear. The queen greeted him not as a ruler greeting a subject, but as an equal greeting an old friend. "You have done more than you know," she said. He smiled slightly. "I just kept moving." They walked together through a garden grown under artificial stars. The queen spoke of her worries, of age, of legacy, of what would happen when she was gone. "You changed the path," the human said. "That's enough." The queen looked at him. "Would your people continue even without symbols, without rewards?" "Yes," he said. "Some will." That's all it ever takes. In her final years, the queen made one last great decision. She changed the old laws that forbade emotional expression in leadership. Not completely, but enough. Future rulers would be allowed to care openly. When the queen finally passed, the galaxy mourned, not with silence but with shared remembrance. Human ships dimmed their lights. Alien worlds paused trade. Stories were told. The princess became queen. On her first address, she did not speak of power or fear. She spoke of choice. "We are not strong because we survive," she said. "We are strong because we help others survive." The galaxy listened. Far away on Earth, humans continued their lives. Most never knew their species had changed history. They argued, dreamed, failed, loved. They sent out ships not knowing if they would return, but they went anyway, and across the stars that mattered. The new queen often looked at the stars the same way her mother once had. But where her mother had seen loss, she saw connection. The galaxy was still dangerous, still imperfect, but now, when darkness appeared, it no longer felt endless, because somewhere a human was already on the way.